In a small village lived a man named Amadi. He was born into a legacy of poverty, the kind that stretched back so far that no one in his family could remember a time when they weren't poor. His grandfather had been poor, his great-grandfather before him, generation after generation. The pattern repeated itself like a curse no one knew how to break. They lived in a small compound at the edge of the village, their home patched together with rusted zinc sheets and fraying hope. Neighbors gossiped about them. Children laughed at their worn clothes and bare feet. But Amadi's family had developed a shield against the shame, a philosophy they clung to whenever the world reminded them of what they lacked. Family is more important than wealth, his father would say, his voice firm despite the hunger in his eyes. Money comes and goes, but blood is forever. We may not have much, but we have each other. That's more than all the riches in the world. And for years, Amadi believed them. He loved his parents with a fierceness that made the insults bearable. Family, loyalty, love. These were the things that couldn't be bought or sold. He made them a promise when he was 15 and his mates were leaving the village to further their studies or learn a profitable trade in the city. "I will never leave this home," he said solemnly. "I will get married here. I will raise my children in this compound. And when I die, I want to be buried right here, next to both of you." His parents had smiled, tears glistening in their eyes, holding on to that promise like it was the only inheritance they could pass down. But life has a way of shattering the promises we make in innocence. Amadi was 18 years old when everything changed. His father was walking along the roadside when a motorcycle, speeding recklessly, struck him down. The impact was brutal. Neighbors rushed him to the nearest clinic, but his injuries were severe. He needed urgent surgery, but first, they needed money to open a patient file. Amadi stood in that clinic, his father's blood staining his shirt, begging. He emptied his pocket, but couldn't get enough money to even cover the registration fee. Without payment, there would be no file. Without a file, there would be no treatment. His father died on a bench in the waiting area, his life slipping away, not because medicine couldn't save him, but because poverty wouldn't allow it. When Amadi returned home to tell his mother, he didn't even get the word out. She looked at his face, at the blood, at the emptiness in his eyes, and she understood. The sound that came from her was inhumane. She clutched her chest, her eyes rolling back, and collapsed. By the time Amadi caught her, she was already gone. She had died of heartbreak. She had died because poverty had taken the only thing that was supposed to matter more than wealth: family. In one day, Amadi lost everything. No parents, no siblings, no relative who cares, no friends, no money, no inheritance. He was utterly, devastatedly alone. The insults from neighbors grew worse. Now they pitied him, which somehow felt more humiliating than mockery. He had no one to vent to, no one to tell him things would be okay. For a year, Amadi stayed in that compound, paralyzed by grief and the weight of his promise. But slowly, the insult chipped away at his resolve. The beating looks became unbearable. The memories became suffocating. He finally decided that he had had enough, enough of the insults, enough of the pity. He realized that staying meant dying slowly, in spirit first, then in body. His parents had valued family above all else. But what family did he have left to honor? The compound held only ghosts now. If he stayed, he would become one too. His parents deserved better than a son who gave up. Living felt like betrayal, but staying felt like surrender. So, Amadi made the most difficult decision of his life. He would leave. He would break his promise to his parents. The guilt nearly crushed him, but he would never let them have the last laugh. Never. He packed a single bag with his favorite clothes. He took nothing else because there was nothing else to take. As he walked away from the compound, he took a long look at his only home in this world, the one he promised to never leave for anything. And then he sighed sadly as he left. The city was a beast that chewed up dreamers and spat out survivors. Amadi arrived with hope and a bag, and the city immediately taught him that neither was enough. He slept in unfinished buildings, under bridges, anywhere that offered shelter. He took any work he could find, pushing wheelbarrows at construction sites, hawking water in traffic, washing dishes at roadside restaurants. Some days he ate, some days he didn't. The city didn't care about his story or his pain. Months blurred into each other. He was rejected from jobs for lacking experience, rejected from opportunities for lacking connections. The cycle of poverty was following him even here, whispering that he couldn't escape what was in his blood. But Amadi kept moving, kept trying, kept refusing to become another statistics. Finally, after 2 years of grinding survivor, he got a break. A prominent firm was hiring cleaners. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. It had a uniform, a schedule, a wage he could count on. Amadi took that job and held onto it like a lifetime. He mopped floors in offices where men in expensive suits made decisions about money he couldn't fathom. He observed, he listened, he learned. One afternoon during his break, Amadi sat on a bench outside the building. Across him, in a small park, a family was having a picnic. The father was playing with his children, tossing them in the air while they shrieked with delight. The mother laid out food, so much food. The children's clothes were clean and bright. Their laughter was carefree. Something shifted inside Amadi as he watched them. His parents had told him family mattered more than wealth, and they had been right about the importance of family. But they had been wrong to think he had to choose. Wealth wasn't the enemy of family. Poverty was. Poverty had killed his parents. If he ever had children, they would never know that pain. They would never watch helplessly as loved ones died for lack of money. At 25 years old, Amadi made a new promise to children who didn't yet exist, to a version of himself that refused to accept generational poverty as fate. He would become wealthy, whatever it took. Then came the announcement that would change everything. A company was launching a youth empowerment program, offering training in a skilled trade they desperately needed. At the end, there would be an exam. Only the best would be hired directly. The registration fee was steep. Amadi worked multiple jobs, saved every coin, borrowed from anyone who would lend. But when the deadline came, he was still short. Desperation made him bold. He began approaching people in the company, begging for help. The reactions came swift and cutting. Some laughed. Others looked through him, as if he were invisible. One man told him to stop dreaming above his station. Every rejection carved deeper, until Amadi felt himself shrinking back. He was ready to give up. But then he remembered the park, the family, the promise. He steadied himself and kept asking. It was a customer who finally stopped him. The man had been watching Amadi's persistence, had seen him humiliated yet returning again and again and again. Without ceremony, the stranger offered to pay the full registration fee. He told Amadi to keep his own money. Just a simple act of belief in someone the world had taught to stay invisible. Amadi attacked that program with everything he had. While others attended casually, Amadi treated it like the lifeline it was. He worked his cleaning shifts, attended every lecture, then studied late into the night. Sleep became a luxury. His entire existence narrowed to a single objective: be the best. When the exam day arrived, Amadi's hands were steady. When the result came, his name stood alone at the top. While others would have to apprentice for months with no guarantee, Amadi was hired directly. At 26 years old, the boy who had cleaned those floors now worked among them as a skilled professional. But Amadi didn't celebrate. He didn't relax. The hunger that had driven him transformed into ambition. He arrived early, stayed late, volunteered for the hardest project. When promotions came, he was ready. Year by year, position by position, Amadi climbed. He invested wisely, built businesses on the sides, created systems that would outlast him. Decades later, Amadi stood in an office overlooking the entire city. His suit was tailored. His name carried weight. He had set out to give his future children a life better than his own, but he had done something more. He had built generational wealth, real lasting wealth that would echo through bloodlines that didn't yet exist. His children, when they came, would never know hunger. They would never watch loved ones die from preventable causes. They would stand on the foundation he had built from nothing. Amadi had promised to break the cycle, and he had kept that promise.